Hello, thanks for joining us. Well, we're here today with Paula Kensington, who has over 30 years experience as a CFO and runs her own consulting group, PK Advisory, where she helps CFOs and CEOs grapple with the day-to-day complexities involved in balancing profitability and purpose. Today, we're going to talk about ESG reporting. There's a lot of conversation going on at the moment around these changes that are coming into place. I'm going to look at the legalities, the practicalities, and the responsibilities. Paula, tell us about the latest legalities around ESG reporting.
Yeah, thanks, Deb. And what's come out just in the last couple of months is the new global accounting sustainability standards from the Institute of Sustainability Standards Board, which is a new board that's been established by IFRS. So the people that are watching this will know exactly what IFRS is, and they've come up with a new board that's now come up with these two new standards. So what has happened now, in simple terms, is that we've moved from a voluntary disclosure and reporting requirements to now mandatory. So that means everybody, the world over, has now got to think about the impact that their business is having on the environment in which it operates, and not just think about the impact, but actually measure the impact and report on that impact. Now, that's going to be quite a big step for a lot of businesses that have not even thought about this. I think a lot of the bigger companies and the listed entities and the companies that have big carbon emissions have already been doing this, in some cases for the last 10 years, through other mediums like integrated reporting and all the other international standards that have been in place, but they've been voluntary. So it's been asked companies to do the right thing, and now we're not asking companies to do the right thing. It's almost like we're telling everybody that they've got to do the right thing. So, it's a huge step in the right direction.
So there's a lot to think about then, if you're a company that hasn't actually gone out there and done this sort of thing before. Who's getting it right? Is there a good role model out there to look to?
I think a lot of the companies that are listed, both locally here in Australia and in the UK and the US, there's following any entity that's listed that's in your industry is a really good place to start. I've been looking at Brambles, for example, locally. They've been reporting on this. They've got some great sustainability reporting that sits alongside their financial reporting. But there's a lot of companies that are doing well. And I think a lot of our audience can go and have a look at the industry that's relevant to them to see who's doing things well.
Okay, yes, that's good advice. And so if you're a CFO and you're running a small to medium business, what's your advice on how to go incorporating ESG principles and reporting into the business practice?
Yeah, I think it's a good place to start around actually looking internally to see what impact the business is having. And so look at the whole value chain, look at what the product and the service is, and how does that product and service go to market? Where's it come from, and where's it going? So a lot of this mindset shift thinking is around actually what's beyond just the direct experience around taking raw materials, creating a product, delivering a product, and then getting it to customer, and then potentially how do you get it back from customers. So almost moving from that linear model to that circular model where we take responsibility for the whole product life cycle, rather than just create, sell, and then waste, is been pretty much how things have been done in the past, and it's asking companies to do better than that. But I think from a finance perspective, like what's the CFO going to do, or what's the business owners going to do? I think getting educated themselves on what's needed, and looking from an external lens, but also looking from an internal lens. What are we doing, and how do we go about creating sustainability as part of our business? So this is really important, not just to think about having an add-on and having some separate department that's looking at this. It's actually about embedding sustainable practices within every aspect of the whole business, not just a separate department. So I think there's lots to go out and look at, and it's really about getting clear on what the business does and the impact that it's having, and also what material, the concept of materiality is really big here. What are the impacts? And sometimes they're not obvious impacts. I think sometimes we don't think about everything that's involved in getting a product to market. And I know we'll talk about that in another conversation, but I think making a start, watching things like this, getting involved in CFO peer-to-peer learning, looking at round tables that I run where we're really talking and sharing ideas. That's really important, because if you're a smaller entity and don't have auditors, you're really limited in terms of who you can go and find and ask and discuss the challenges that lie ahead of us.
Yes. So in terms of resources, then, if you're a CFO or a CEO and you're thinking, well, gosh, where do I start? Where is a good place to start?
Yeah. So I'm creating a framework around that as well, so that you can come to me at my website or reach out to me on LinkedIn and things like that. But there's a number of different places. All of the big four have introduction to where to start. So, if you Google how to start ESG reporting, then you get a plethora of free resources. But, again, they sort of caveat to say, well, here's how you need to think about it. And then you can kind of engage us to come and help you. Now, if you don't have the budget for the big four to come and help you, or even, the second tier, it's like, well, it's a good place to start to build the matrix around what can we do? What are the people that we have in our organization that can actually start thinking and helping us, create a work group? Because there'll be people in our organizations that are really, really passionate about sustainability. So finding those in different areas of our business to get them to help business leaders drive a roadmap, create a roadmap, think about the people, think about the product or the service, and think about the planet and the communities and what impact we're having. So yeah, I think that's a good start anyway.
Yes, that sounds really very, very important to sort of consider, I guess, is actually looking at getting some, some good help to start you on the journey. But I mean, given the current environmental and economic climate, when you're looking at this journey, a lot of people might be feeling quite overwhelmed or thinking, well, it's all too late anyway. Is it too late? Do we still have time?
Oh, for sure. I mean, in some ways, yes, we don't have enough time from a planet perspective, but in other ways, we absolutely can take steps now to think about how to do things differently. If you look at the Paris Agreement and the targets that got set in 2015, some countries are going backwards. So that's not to say that we shouldn't do anything just because we're not getting there. Like, if we all took that attitude, then we really would be in a serious catastrophe. I mean, we're pretty much in a crisis. We are in a crisis. So we don't want to get into a catastrophe. But I think, if business leaders and CFOs can take steps towards thinking about the impact that we have, measuring the impact we have, shining a light on the impact that we have, so that we can actually change the way that potentially we do business. And we know that we're living in a world with finite resources, yet we think endless growth is something to aspire to. I mean, it doesn't make logical sense. So we can't keep doing the same because there's a finite element of what we have. So yeah, in some ways people think it's too late, but I don't think it is, because these standards now are coming out effective 1st of Jan 2024. So we have to make change now. So it's definitely not too late. In actual fact, people making a move now are going to get ahead of where everyone's going to be in 12 months' time, because the accounting standard says the 12-month period after the 1st of Jan. So for most Australian entities, that means the 2025 financial year is going to be the first 12 months period after the 1st of Jan, because most people have that June cutoff reporting. But if you're an entity in Australia and you have an overseas parent that has a calendar year, then you've got to start thinking about this now, because from the 1st of Jan, you're on the hook to report. So, it's about getting that roadmap, thinking about where are the impacts, that I'm having, and how are we going to get that data. So if you think about qualitative and quantitative data, then we can do the quantitative, because it's kind of numeric and numbers, and generally our systems are there already to be able to support that. But all the qualitative data, all the subjective scenario-based data, we've got to put that into place, and that might actually be the hardest thing to do.
Yeah, all very interesting and a lot of food for thought, but it gives us a lot of hope that there is time. The time is now to make these positive changes. So thank you, Paula. If you're interested in learning more about how you can start implementing planet positive changes in your business, then hop on to pkadvisory.com.au, where you can download a copy of Paula's green paper and find out a little bit more. Thank you.
Thanks, Deb.